Alright, let me see if I can find this in Google real quick. Yep, sounds about right. Raw healing in Star Rail is completely useless. Let's talk about it. Alright, so obviously healing is a good mechanic like it is in any game, so it's pretty harsh to say it's useless, but I just want you to hear me out until the end. Please. Sustains have always been interesting in Star Rail. You obviously need a good sustain, or else you'll just die in the 1 or 2 hits you take in harder content. Can't have that, since for something like Memory of Chaos, you'll lose a point you need to get those sweet, sweet jades. So now, you gotta find a competent sustain. Well, no fear. There are 2 different paths entirely devoted to sustain, with Abundance and Preservation. In Abundance, we have Lynx, Natasha, Huahua, Gallagher, Bailu, Luocha, and Ling Sha. For Preservation, we have Xuan, Japard, March, the Trailblazer, and Aventurine. Every single character listed here can keep you alive at the bare minimum, that is for certain. However, this is also where my argument starts. First of all, I want to start by sharing that I think Preservation characters are far superior. Having shields given by Japard or Aventurine are amazing. If your health just doesn't get touched, what's the point of healing? The same applies for Xuan, who reduces damage so much and then simply heals herself. Once again, the overall survivability of Preservation characters is quite superior, I feel like. In many cases, you will be able to prepare for when a big attack is coming, and have a shield ready, and you can then cast another one pretty soon after. With Abundance characters, you have to take the hit first, and if anyone dies, it's game over from there. Bailu is at least capable of reviving characters, but at the highest level content, that is basically a non-factor. Not to mention, Japard can actually do that too. So if shields are so much better, why use Abundance at all? Well, that's because picking your sustain isn't about their ability to keep you alive anymore. It's about what else they can offer you and your team. And this is why I say raw healing is worthless. There are characters who offer you that, but then also so much more. Let's now look at the best sustains in the game. For Abundance, let's look at Huahua as a 5-star example, and Gallagher since he's the best 4-star sustain in the game currently. Huahua is more of a jack-of-all-trades healer in my opinion, but she's more like a queen of all trades honestly. Her skill will solo heal characters for 21% of her max HP, plus about 560 at E0. Pretty solid numbers, but the real benefit is that it can heal characters adjacent to your initial target for about 16% plus some extra. In terms of skill healing, she's pretty well off, but then, what about her ult? Other Abundance like Natasha, Lynx, and Bailu have their ults also dedicated to healing, so why wouldn't Huohuo's? Well, that's because Star Rail gave her something to diversify her, and really just make her more useful. Her ultimate gives energy to all other characters on the team, and boosts their attack. Her ultimate is literally just Ting Yun's kit in one move. Does Natasha shooting the teddy bear to give you some light healing really sound better than this? Or Lynx popping open a can of sardines or whatever it is? Seriously, please, what the heck is in there? I don't know. Huahua is a 5-star though, so she's expected to be a bit better than other characters. Instead, let's look at Gallagher. He's a 4-star, so surely he's nowhere near as good as other top sustains, right? Ah, well that's just criminal. So Gallagher is a 4-star sustain, who's just as good as Xuan, and in certain modes can be just as helpful as Aventurine? Alright, let's break down this anomaly, because this genuinely makes no sense. March and Natasha are considerably worse than Gallagher on this list, and Lynx, while decent, is still not close to him. He's even above Bailu and Luocha, who are both 5-stars. Why is this? When examining Gallagher's moveset, he is easily one of the most unique characters in the game. Gallagher's healing almost completely scales off of his break stat, and wouldn't you know it, not long after he was introduced into the game, there was a new form for the Trailblazer that made break incredibly powerful. With Gallagher being the only healer to really thrive off of break and still do his job, this was recorded before Ling Sha, using him with any break related team is just common sense. Even without the potential super break damage, Gallagher can still do a lot if he can break the enemy with his enhanced attack. Did I mention he gets an enhanced attack by the way? That also heals the whole party, and comes out right after his ult, so you can heal whenever you need to as long as you save your ult? If you couldn't tell, these two main factors combined are what make Gallagher such an incredible character. He absolutely lives for super break comps, is capable of inflicting a debuff so he can still be useful in other teams like for Acheron, and with his action advance, is always a reliable healing option. He still has 2 healing options with his skill and enhanced basic attack as well, so he's not lagging behind other healers in terms of adaptability. The last little cherry on top of all of this is that his ultimate is a damaging ult that can hit the entire enemy team just in case you need a little extra crowd control. Gallagher is the prime case of Star Rail realizing just healers aren't truly helpful anymore. So, they got creative and gave him a different playstyle than any other sustain in the game. And it worked spectacularly. He's an amazing unit and one of my personal favorites, not to mention with the way his kit is built, even with someone like Xuan now to replace him, Gallagher can still find some use elsewhere. Plus, he's a 4-star too, so way easier to get than a 5-star would be for many free-to-play players. Gallagher is the embodiment of what I feel sustains should be going forward. They can all keep you alive, so I want to know what else you're capable of. I need something more enticing brought to the table. And this philosophy is why 2 preservation characters have been some of the best sustains for so long. Let's talk about Xuan first. Her attack capability is extremely lacking, and instead of providing shields, she just reduces the damage taken by party members. She can technically heal a small bit for your team, but on paper, why would she be that good? Well, first of all, the damage reduction is genuinely very insane. But secondly, Xuan can heal herself almost to full HP without any help, and the biggest reason above it all, she offers something valuable to almost any team comp: crit. Where Xuan excels was never meant to be her offensive capability, but rather what she does for your offense. Just by having her defense active, which you'll need anyway if you want to survive, she will give 12 crit rate at E0 max level. Do you understand how impactful 12 crit rate can be? That's at least 2 to 3 rolls into a crit rate substat that you wouldn't have otherwise, and can often be that thing to push you into 100% crit rate for high level builds. Xuan will always be a reliable sustain option for this very reason. Yes, she can't really deal damage in most cases, but that defense combined with the crit buff is so valuable to so many teams that it warrants her being used over many of the other options. But of course, you can also choose not to gamble on any of these other silly choices, and simply try to get the best sustain in the game currently, Aventurine. It's pretty unanimous that Aventurine is the best sustain in the game currently, but why is that exactly? Well, let's start with his ability to shield. Aventurine casts shield with his skill like March, but can give it to the entire party like Gepard or the Trailblazer. He lacks the ability to cleanse debuffs like other healers, but that's not all too common either way. At least, I believe he does. I haven't checked the Eidolons too much, so nobody kill me for that. The only preservation capable of that is March, actually. Instead, he gets something else to make up for it. His shields are capable of stacking, which is a mechanic no other preservation character has access to. The values are nowhere near as high as March or Gepard, but hey, that's a worthy trade-off for only having to use a skill to get shields on 4 characters, right? Well, that's where you're wrong, because remember, it's all or nothing. And Aventurine has it all. His overworld talent allows you to start the battle with a shield, but the amount you get is random. I don't have exact numbers, but according to Predwin, there is a chance for 24%, his default shield amount, a high chance for 36%, which is only 9% lower than Gepard's ultimate, and a small chance for, get this, 60%. And guess what? You can use the skill multiple times, and you retain the highest value. Let's now look at one of Aventurine's most prominent team comps to get a feel for how good this talent can be. The team consists of Dr. Ratio, Topaz, him, and Robin as your support. The most amount of skill points this team would need to use before battle is 2. One for Ratio or Robin, since both of them can't use their ability at the same time, and one for Topaz. That gives you 3 chances to start the battle with a higher shield value than his default amount given by skill. I mean this with no exaggeration. 36%, and it taking 3 turns for this shield to dissolve can genuinely get you to the end of some battles. Let alone 60%! I'm calm, I'm okay, That IPC motherfucker. So, Aventurine's defensive output is clearly insane, and that alone would be enough to warrant him being the best sustain in the game, surely. He clearly can't have anything else to him, or he would be busted, right? If you've been listening at all, you know that's not where this ends. Aventurine is the best sustain in the game not just for his defensive prowess, but for what he is capable of on offense. Aventurine has a follow-up attack that needs 7 stacks to go off. This follow-up attack hits all enemies and is based on defense, which will always be his highest stat. Now this is where things get criminal. Aventurine has a major trace where for every 100 defense exceeding 1600, he will gain 2% crit rate, capping at 48 additional crit rate. Without even building crit rate at all, more than half your follow-up attacks will crit and do decent damage. Oh, and did I mention that one of his other major traces also gives shields for every follow-up attack he hits? And remember everyone, they stack. So not only is he an incredible defensive unit, he also has attack capabilities that are fairly decent, and he becomes even better if characters around him are follow-up based as well. If this was all he had, he would still be the best sustain in the game for sure. And yet, we still aren't done. Want to guess what his ultimate does? Please, I beg you to guess. You attack a single target for a decent amount of damage, and you gain a random amount of stacks to trigger your follow-up attack. The enemy hit with his ult will also receive a debuff that increases all crit damage taken by 15% for 3 straight turns. This character is incredible. With all of this combined, it's pretty easy to see why Aventurine is so good. They took the formula for making a tank and threw it out the window and let someone cook up the most delectable and deranged meal that they could. They made Aventurine an Overwatch tank basically. He's bulky and will protect his teammates while also being a consistent damage dealer who will set up teammates to make devastating plays. Having Aventurine in your team is honestly like having another DPS out there that just isn't that good, but having that and amazing defense to the point that you're probably not getting hit, we get the most broken combination Star Rail has seen so far. After looking at these 4 characters, does everyone kind of see my point? Raw healing is useless in Star Rail. Natasha has no purpose when you could just pick Gallagher and get some damage. Why pick Bailu when Aventurine offers damage and will basically guarantee you don't get hit in the first place? Luocha is great at healing, but when you could pick Wawa and not only get cleanse on heals, but guaranteed energy regen too? There's no competition. Even a character like Japard, who has use outside of his ultimate with his ability to apply a debuff, just doesn't compare to these top options. It's just like I said at the start, that healing stuff don't matter too much. Luckily, Star Rail already knows that. The last character who was released that was purely a healer was Lynx. Lynx was added at the same time as Xuan actually, all the way back in version 1.3. Following version 1.3, there was a deliberate change with the Star Rail character team. I think they themselves realized that just healing or just shielding wasn't enticing anymore. Almost everyone and their mom just used Xuan as a sustain because that crit rate boost was just so beneficial. No other sustain offered something like that, so why bother with them? Following this patch, the next sustain to come out was Huahua, who broke the mold for healers. She was a good healer, yes, but contributed beyond that with her amazing ultimate that so many characters benefit from nowadays. Following her, we got Gallagher, another perfectly capable healer for a 4-star, but with a unique mechanic and style that made him different, and made him way more beneficial for certain team comps than just running a basic sustain or even someone like Xuan. We then instantly got Aventurine. And yeah, he's Aventurine. I don't really need to say more on that one. Ling Sha is the newest character to follow this tradition. She's a healer, yes, but she has so much more to her kit. She's capable of follow-up attacks with her pet, and can even increase break effect for her team. Star Rail has clearly made a purposeful and wise choice with their design philosophy for sustains. Why just heal when you can do so much more? If the best players don't need that much healing or defense to beat hard content, why not give them something else to work with on top of that? Let them be creative. The idea of sustains only doing a supporting job is over. Sustains can do so much more now, and it seems like this change isn't stopping anytime soon. And honestly, I'm here for it. But if all the new sustains are going in this direction, what happens to the old ones? This, my friends, is the very namesake of the video. The sustain issue in Star Rail is simply the fact that sustains are different now. And in my opinion, a lot of these older characters just don't work in this new era of gameplay. Of course, you can always use who you want as long as you personally enjoy the game. But there sadly isn't much reason to use these characters anymore. Lynx still has niche uses, like working with Yun Li as an example. Luocha is still an amazing healer who doesn't require you to even use skill points. He's capable of cleanse, and in most cases, I've never seen somebody really go down with Luocha as their healer. Natasha and Bailu, yeah, okay, they aren't great, but they still get the job done if you just need reliable healing. The unfortunate part about some gacha games is the fact that they do not buff characters. They can add support for characters that make them better that way, but there aren't traditional buffs really. Not like buffing a character in a fighting game or an FPS game. This is the same reason why we see characters like Zila not being as good anymore. She was incredibly strong in the early days, but she simply doesn't stack up to new characters like Acheron, Firefly, or Fei Xiao. These characters will continue to become more obsolete over time, and I personally feel Gallagher was introduced around the same time as Aventurine, so that almost all players could have at least one of the new age sustains to build with going forward. That's the truth of the sustain issue. It's already been solved, but the solution is, unfortunately, to move on from the past, and find a new sustain that speaks to you when you can. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know. Figure it out, man. Thanks everybody so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this latest script. This is something I've wanted to make for a really long time and have always found interesting, so it's nice to finally get it all written down and share it with others to hear. What do you guys think? Do you think that this is a bit of an overreach? Do you think older sustains are still perfectly fine? Or do you think that a lot of the newer ones should be the only ones used going forward? I'm really curious to see what the other opinions are, since I have very clearly stated my mind, so I'm very curious to see. Leave it in the comments below. And once again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you look forward to the next video. Alright, bye-bye.